Welcome to ArtBeat. I'm your host, Adrienne Red. My guest today is Robert Christophe. He's been an actor and playwright in the Philadelphia area for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And he's played Jed in the original production of Black Nativity and Swahili in I Am a Man, and most recently Puck in the Art and Theater's production of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Well, the first thing I want to talk to you about is your work with the Brick Playhouse and the Actors Workshop of Philadelphia. What exactly do you do there?
The Brick Playhouse and the Actors Workshop are actually two slightly different programs in the same building. The Actors Workshop is my studio, my acting studio. The Brick Playground and the actual Brick Playhouse is a developmental center for established artists and writers, performance artists, writers, actors. And it is basically a gym class for those folks' imagination.
Like gymboree for grown-up actors?
Exactly. You come there and you can exercise the imagination this way and that way, and if you're Greg Giovanni, every other way. And
so you teach classes there too?
Yes.
And you've developed some of your stage pieces out of the classes that you teach?
Yes. Well, I've used my students in some of my stage pieces that I developed there. Yeah, it's all kind of one big soup, and but yes, 3 or 4 pieces actually. The Campers and Other Adventures and Michigan Impossible are the 2 completed pieces, and then there are two or three pieces kind of on the burners.
So we're going to get to Mission Impossible in a minute, which is the thing of yours that I've seen in the past year that I was the most excited by. But I also saw the Campers and Other Adventures in spring of '98, mm-hmm. And it's clearly a set of sort of developed and flowered skits. Mm-hmm. I mean, you really get this sense there's a little bit of transparency to the creative process. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of wondering what that was like. I mean, you start with an idea that you just have in your house one day, or you go mm-hmm. in the studio and you move your body a certain way. How does that work? Can you give me a sense of what that developmental process is like?
Well, what you're describing is exactly what happens. I'm in bed one night. I get an idea. The Brick Playhouse, because I'm a resident there, I've basically been given a small black box theater with lights and sound, and limited props and whatnot. And when I have those inspirations, I can write them down on my computer. I can take them into that. Studio the next morning and start working on them. I might work on them for a couple of months, have 2 or 3 friends or other people that I respect come in, look at that work, get asked some questions about where and when and how and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And when I have those answers, then I'm usually ready for some kind of workshop production. And Campers is what that was a classic workshop production. Student support actors work with the 2 residents.
Campers is the 2-person piece that you
yes,
developed with your wife
and
Kim.
Partner, yes.
And it's a wordless piece with 2 campers who are kind of muddling their way through. It's a comic wordless piece.
Yeah.
And it's maybe 8-10 minutes long.
The
Campers
is about 45 minutes. Yeah.
I must have seen a shorter version.
Yeah.
Version
and
of
we
it.
have lots of little skits and stuff like that that we're doing. Yeah, but the Campers is a slightly longer, more adventurous kind of a silent piece.
Well, that's quite a risk to do a wordless piece that is that long, because it's very hard to sustain a narrative without
mm-hmm.
language.
Yeah.
Can you give me a sense from any one of those skits from the Campers and Other Adventures of what the first idea was? I mean, give me a specific example by title of what the first idea was, and then if you remember where it went to from there.
Sure. The the therapist sketch, which is kind of like what it's about, not being able to speak. Kim and I were lying in bed, and I was trying to articulate an idea, and Kim said, "Oh my God, we should do a whole speech with because we were communicating, and we both were just gesticulating and going, oh, yes, I'm right there. Yes, I know. I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh, yeah, you know." And not a word was being spoken, but we were really right there together. And from that,
but to expand that to the point where the audience could follow you.
Yeah. You have to take that idea, and then put a context to it, and then put it in a context that's logical and acceptable and
funny and moves,
right,
and comprehensible.
Right, and then you have to pick a subject that's probably appropriate for the stage, and you know.
Sometimes you do say a word which is not a word at all. I mean, I had a friend once who, she wanted to say, "I'm devastated." She had gotten somebody's name wrong or something, and she said, "I'm devasted," which sounds
great.
So much better, right?
And,
it's
and
not
a slightly
word.
different idea, but one worth pursuing. See, and I might have to take that idea and do a whole another sketch. Yeah.
Well, the other piece that came out of this workshopping process, of course, is Michigan Impossible, which is sort of your at least for now, your grand opus.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to look at a video clip of that. But before we do that, I want the people watching this to have a better understanding of what it is. It's a one-man show.
Yes.
In which you play about a dozen characters.
Yes.
And the central character, Jesse, mm-hmm. Is an adult man in present time trying to get home to Michigan from Philadelphia for his grandmother's funeral.
Yes.
And then he goes through this memory journey of mm-hmm. being a kind of troubled teenager and mm-hmm. searching for his own identity. Is there anything that you want to add to that?
He is the product of a very rich, multicultural base, which is full of, and a lot of that mix is full of mysticism and magic, and
Native American culture,
yes,
and African American culture.
Right, and his journey through this storm to this woman who really helped him develop his own identity and own himself, has jiggled all of that, has vibrating all of those cultures and all of that identity all at once, and as he travels through this, he remembers how she influenced his life, and there's some stuff that's not quite,
shaking into place.
Yeah, so he's got some work to do yet,
So this video clip is Jesse's grandmother, portrayed by Robert Christophe, talking to Jesse the little boy. So let's see that video clip.
No, honey, excuse me. Honey, what? What? Oh, now, Jesse. Now, you know you didn't see no coyote, baby. This is Michigan. Lord have mercy, this boy. Last week, he was talking to dead people. All right, Jesse. What did the coyote look like? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Do you know what he's talking about? It's not any coyotes in Michigan, is it? Is it? Jesse, are you sure it was a coyote? It wasn't just a dog or something? Oh. He told you he was a coyote. Well, if he told you he was a coyote, baby, he must be a coyote. Yes, he must be. Come on right here. Come on right in and get my purse. Coyote. Yes, good, thank you. All right, now, here is 50 cents. There you go. You go buy yourself a soda, and just here's 25 more for your coyote friend. Oh, anything he wants, anything at all. All right, now, close the door. Jesse, close the door. Forget, close that door. And thank you for thanking me. I said, coyotes. Storyteller, that one. Storyteller, storyteller. He takes after me. His yamma. He could never say grandma, see? He could only say yamma. So I've been yamma ever since. A storyteller's soul is always rich and full. Rich and full. The belly stays empty, but the soul will be well fed. That just popped right into my head. We used to say that saying all the time. Goodness gracious, come on now. I do hate getting old. Shit. Oh yes, Faulkner, Oxford, Mississippi. Billy Faulkner. You know, he wrote them books. Big old thick books. It's a literature, don't you know? Yes, it was. He put our family in one of those books once. He called us the Beauchamps. Of course, we wasn't nothing but the Beaus. And for that, well, we was the Kimmers.
I really enjoy seeing that, even though I've seen the show and I've watched the tape a bunch of times.
She's special.
You grew up in Muskegon, Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Actors or artists of all kinds are usually annoyed by this question, but to what extent is the story of Michigan Impossible autobiographical?
Not very. It certainly is. I think all writers write with all writers who want to write well write what they know. I know the subject that I'm writing about, but I have to condense what I want to write about, which is the multicultural identity, the richness of it. So I'm writing about that, which is a concern of mine, and I'm using a lot of my own experience indirectly. The characters in the play are compilations of many characters. The stories told in the play are a mixture of family stories. There are some family stories, and I would say Yemaya probably provides the stuff that's closest to reality.
Did you have a grandmother, Yemaya?
Well, I had two Yemaya. I have 7 Yemayas. Yemaya is every sister and aunt and grandmother that I've ever had in my family.
Basically,
yeah,
all matriarchs.
All matriarchs.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought you showed tremendous skill in conveying the story with the almost entirely one-sided dialogue. I mean, there were the one-sided telephone conversations, mm-hmm. and how did you work those up to the point where they were comprehensible to somebody who's going to come and hear the story once on the stage, so that you can propel it along with one actor who moves around the stage?
Well, it's really the biggest challenge and an experiment for me. I didn't know that it would work, and sometimes I don't think that it's still extremely successful. But there are times when what I get from giving half of the conversation is I let the audience have the position of almost like a reader. You have to provide, the audience has to provide the other half of the conversation. And if I make the conversation as accurate and as real, and if there's an object and a point to the conversation, the audience actually begins to provide the other half of the conversation, and probably better than I could write it.
And that's the challenge that every artist is always looking for, is how to make it participatory.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and what happens is that I have the problem of it's always a problem to do narrative in any kind of way, and the story is largely narrative, and not have it become a very passive experience. And now that's one of the real benefits that I'm getting from this, is that people are coming up and saying, I saw the kids, and I saw this, and I heard these voices, and I saw the storm, and that's what excites me the most, because I mean, in theater, I think that's what we really aim to do. How can it be different than film? Well, here's one way that it can be different from film.
That hallucinatory effect is amazing. I remember seeing The Belle of Amherst about Emily Dickinson and waiting for the other actors to walk on stage for curtain calls the first time I saw it. Because
Isn't that wonderful?
I saw them all in my
Yeah.
mind. Or in Arthur Miller's The Crucible, there's the scene where Giles Corey is pressed to death. And every single time I go to see that show, I expect to see that scene on stage, which of course does not take place on stage.
Right,
it's
right.
told to you by
Yes.
another character.
Yes.
So that is the power
Yeah.
of theater.
Yeah.
Well, we have another clip from Michigan Impossible, and this is Jesse, who is reading an essay that, in some sense, it's the kernel of who he is and what he's struggling with. So I'd like to see that.
Short class is studying origins. Well, that must be great fun. Mr. Rubeski gave me an assignment that you wrote, and I found it extremely interesting, and I would like to ask you to read it for me. Would you do that? All right. A Letter to My Ancestors by Jesse Bowles. Homeroom 107, Mr. Rubeski. Dear ancestors, I've chosen to live between you, to be something new, because I'm bored with the past, or at least the parts the school thinks are important. I thought it would be easy to live without your burdens, but it seems there's no escape. Being a minority is just a bitch. And being a minority of one is even worse, but I guess that's just how it's going to be, I guess. I don't want to be a black man, or a red man, or a white man. I want to be something of all three. I hope I don't piss any of you off, but it seems the only way for me to live if I'm to honor you all. At our family reunion, we grass dance in the backyard and bless all of our relations. And in the basement, when we feed you sweet potato and rum, and Yemaya lifts her dress and dances, she says that you're all dancing with us. And even though Mom always has to go to the living room and ask Jesus not to strike the house with lightning, we all seem to be getting along okay. I wish you got along better at school. It makes me wonder how I got here sometimes. Thanks for listening. P.S. Please don't all speak at once. It's getting very confusing in my head. Jesse.
It's really fun to watch yourself do that.
Yeah, it is. It is.
In that clip, we see you go from Mr. Moblow, the kind of stiff and slightly pompous but
Yes.
well-meaning counselor.
Yes.
He's sort of a quintessential guidance counselor
Yes,
with
yes,
his administrative ease.
And you really find out that he's really something else.
Yeah.
He's a special person.
He's got a good heart.
Yeah.
To Jesse the teenager. And in the show, you play Jesse the man, Jesse the teenager, various teachers and administrators, relatives, gang members. My first question is, what did you do in particular to prepare for those quick changes? I mean, other than characters like Sybil or Eve in Three Faces of Eve, you don't normally have a character who changes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Lon Chaney Jr. did some stuff where he changed without makeup and stuff, but normally you're one character for a show. What did you do to prepare for it?
Worked on one at a time. Pulled it completely apart and worked on one character.
So they had a
at
solid
time.
sense of who they were.
Yes, and a lot of improvisation and a lot of, and then once I had who they were, and who they were physically, what I was doing with those characters, then I began to just practice going from one to another, and sometimes not even with the text in the play, just going from one to the next. Because I mean, there's a scene that is going to be impossible right now. I mean, it's a very long scene to get a sense of. But I mean, in the leading up to the Epiphany, I'm playing all of the gang members and Mr. Moblow
Right.
in two different places.
And it has to be precise, because if it isn't, you don't know what's going on.
And you're not going to get the scene.
Right,
Exactly.
and if you don't know what's going on, you don't get that moment of epiphany.
Right, right. And,
Can you see the whole show being done with a full cast?
yes, I can. In fact, I'm toying around with. I think it would make a really great little independent movie, I've been piddling around with. I haven't been piddling around. I've been writing. I don't want to say it. I've been writing kind of a screenplay version of it because I think it's so kind of wild. It would be much different than the effect of it. I think would be much different than the solo show.
And here's the ultimate ego question. Can you see somebody besides yourself playing Jesse?
Oh, absolutely. 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 I hope so. In fact, I've had some people do monologues from it already. So
Really?
yeah, and, in their auditions or in their own performance situations. So I'm greatly encouraged. I hope anybody picks it up, and any race. I mean, I hope that they understand that you just pick it up and do it. You can do it. It's out there to just. This is non-traditional. This is what the show's about. Just do it. Do it.
Since you mentioned that, though, I'm forced to ask you now. The very opening sequence is another guidance counselor. I don't think it is Mr. Moblow.
No, actually, it's not a guidance counselor, but you never know. I call him the man of statistics.
Yeah, some damn administrator.
Yeah.
And he's not happy with Jesse because Jesse was not able to say what his race was on this form.
Yes.
And he's getting very exasperated, and he says, well, what are you mostly?
Yes.
What are you mostly? I mean, what's your racial makeup to have this whole background and this whole struggle that you must have gone through firsthand?
Yeah. I don't know what I am mostly. I have given up that entire kind of figuring out what I am mostly, and just trying to own my whole self for what I am. So.
But there are all these forces in society that are constantly trying to pigeonhole
Yes,
you.
absolutely, absolutely, and you just have to keep saying that's not who I am. I'm not going to. I'm me.
Do you refuse to do it on driver's licenses and?
Absolutely, all of it. Yeah, it's unnecessary.
It's a struggle, though, and I bet.
And there are a lot of and there are a lot of good arguments to why it is necessary. And when I really look at them all, for me, I keep coming up with the bottom line is that it isn't necessary. It's really not necessary. I mean.
Has it forced you to be a kind of outsider all of your life, being taken as a white man by blacks and a black man by whites? Yeah. That must be very hard.
It has been. There have been times when it's hard, but I think that it's the greatest gift is that it's allowed me to escape that madness and to see what it really is for what it really is. I mean, it's nothing. That kind of thinking, it's nothing. It's just ignorant. I mean, it's just a trap. I mean, it isn't who you are. The question of who you are is so much more complex and takes so much more work than assigning a color or even racial heritage. While that's important, it doesn't really get to the very important question of who you are as a human being, which is what is your character? What is the quality of your character? How do you consider character? How does that character manifests itself in your life and in your actions and in your choices as a person? And then that will determine who you are, what actions you do here on this planet while you're here, and boy, I mean, to say, well, that's the who you are question to answer.
That's a question that's worth focusing on for a lifetime.
For a lifetime, exactly, exactly.
Tell me a little bit about the collaborative process with your wife, Kim Waldauer, who directed Michigan Impossible.
Yes, and yes.
What was it like to have it be your life partner who was directing the show, and how was it different from maybe another director that you've worked with?
Well, it's not very. It's different because I'm really lucky that the person I've married is probably the most talented director I've ever worked with. She's very young as a director. so I have that benefit because I mean there is actual respect there, our genuine artistic respect before there's any relationship. You know, there was that respect. The relationship makes it a little dicey at times. We have to work at what hats we're wearing when we're we're working, but we love working together, and we have a very similar sense of humor. And
I know actor couples who work in shows together, and one particular show where the husband character was sort of a jerk in the show, and they would go home, and she said she would feel this residual anger towards him because it was her character.
Yeah, there's times where there's that certainly happens. I can see that happening a lot.
But it's mostly been great, I'm sure, to work with somebody that
you
you have such intimacy with.
Yeah, and trust, which is really important when you're, especially when you're doing work that's important to you. To trust the person that's standing outside, and it's going to ask you the right questions, the questions that that may be hard. Somebody who can be that intimate with you can really call you on your crap.
Well, that's what theater and literature are about. They're about forcing yourself to answer hard questions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm very sorry to say that we're out of time to continue this conversation because I could go on for a very long time. I really want to thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I want to thank you for tuning into ArtBeat. Thanks for watching. So, how is it different to act in your own piece as opposed to somebody else's words?
It is